Right, so we're here today at the Oaks Lakes in Sesse, and it's the Sunday Open on the new lakes, and I'm a little bit late starting, but I'm on peg 4 on ash, which I think was a good area yesterday. There was a Fishermania qualifier here yesterday, and I think this peg had £114 come second in the match, but the only problem is today is I've actually not got any spare pegs, so it's quite tight here. I've got an angler either side, but I'm still sure there's loads of fish in this lake, so I'm sure we're going to get some bites. So just started by potting the left hand line with a few maggots. Maggots seemed to be the best bait yesterday. I was on Beach Lake, but just to start with, while I build up my maggot line, I'm just going to start on meat and just tap a few cubes in. Just put 6 or 8 cubes in, and hopefully we'll get a few bites. So I'm just literally starting tapping 6 or 8 cubes of meat in, just on the long pole. Now yesterday I didn't actually get any bites short, so I'm going to start fishing the long pole. See, one thing that was really noticeable today, and it's exactly the same today, is there's a lot of fish just milling around on the surface. I can't actually see any that I could mug, but as I fed that bait then, some fish should come to have a look at me float, and you see that's gone. This was a problem yesterday. Like, you'd think when you see all these fish that you just go in and catch shallow, but it's not like that. They're just not feeding fish, they just come in to have a look, and if anything they come and try and have a look at your float on the surface, but you can't actually catch them, so you just got to try and ignore them, I think, unless obviously I can see quite a few on the top to be mugged. So I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to pot it about 50-60 maggots on my left hand line. I'm just going to ping a few maggots over that all the time, try and build that up for a little bit, just see what's going on around the lake. Ooh. Right. So I've hooked the fish. That was a positive bite then, just as I was actually feeding my left hand line. Got a little bite. Don't know what it is, maybe a little carp. So it seems like sort of stamp of fish in these lakes are sort of £2 to £4, not big fish, so you need quite a few fish to do well. Nice start, first chuck. So I actually haven't fed any bait on my short line yet, and that's on purpose to sort of see which is better out long first. So obviously if I catch really well on meat, I'm probably just going to feed meat short. Just get my clicker out. It's actually a £70 net limit here, so I need to obviously make sure I don't go over in my nets. So again, single 6mm piece of meat. I'm literally just potting half a dozen or 8 cubes of meat in. Very negative, but obviously on this venue there's a lot of fish, so no real need to pile the bait in. If there's some fish in front of you, you should be able to just tap a little bit of bait in and get a bite. I've actually got my mate next to me, Alan Fowlson, today, so we're going to have a good little battle with him. I think he's just up to fish short, so that's interesting. I need to keep an eye on obviously what Al's doing. He'll probably be fishing meat, I think. You can see them fish whizzing about on the top. It's crazy how many fish are actually in this lake. Another little bite there, looks like a silver, maybe an hide. Oh, let's move on. Little hide. So, a few people getting an odd bite. It's not started hectic. I think it was pretty much exactly the same yesterday. Fished quite well on this lake. I think there was 4 or 5 tons. But the weights here in the summer, they can be up to 300-400 pounds. So probably for the Oaks Lakes, well, they're a bit short. Probably for the Oaks Lakes standards, didn't fish the best really. So I'm just going to take it steady. I think obviously on this lake yesterday, a few people have actually caught shallow. So that's obviously going to be an option. So obviously where I've had that line where I'm going to catapult a few maggots in, hopefully I will catch shallow on that line. But for now, it seems like there's an odd bite to be had on meat, which is a good sign. I'm getting a few bites straight away. Maybe that's telling me meat might be the bait to fish short, and also on this lake there is a lot of hide, like you see, I just caught one just before. So if I obviously feed maggots short, I might just catch a hide there, and obviously I want to be catching proper fish, so probably I'm going to just throw some meat in short. So first 3 chucks, probably got 6-7 pound in the net, so that's a good start to the match. Not had to do anything daft, just tap a few bits of meat in and just sit and be patient, because like I say, there is a lot of fish in this lake. So every time I ship out, I'm just going to pick a dozen of 15 maggots up, just sort of ping them around the float. And then going on my long line where I've just fed some meat. That could, felt like a good bite. I think it's in the mouth of a little carp. You can see you hardly have to feed any bait when there's a lot of fish in a venue like this, because obviously all that happens if you feed too much bait is you send them a bit crazy. So like literally just feeding 6 bits of meat. And like, good nice thing with meat is only really decent fish are going to eat 6 small cubes of meat, so you're confident that the bait's on the bottom, the fish will find your bait and you'll catch one. So nice stamp carp. They're not small carp, they're sort of £3. So great little start to the match. So like I say, we've had 4 chucks now, we're 14 minutes in. I've got £10 on the click, I've got 3 carp and an hide. It's a great start to the match, that. And I'm not going to commit too soon to feeding me short line, because I don't probably expect to fish there till, 2 hours to go at probably the earliest. So I'm not going to commit to feeding it, but it's looking likely that meat's going to be the best bait short, because to go in and get that many bites so quick, so it tells me that's probably the right bait, what they want to eat. And like I say, I want to catch decent fish late in the match. I don't want to be catching hide and stuff. And now even I think that could be an hide or a skimmer on meat. So I imagine on maggots, you'll catch absolutely loads of them. And I mean, they're nice early in the match just to get some bites off. But late in the match is coming to the end. We need to be catching decent fish. Nice little hide. At the minute, as you can see, I'm just fishing with my small Preston cad pot and just rattling my meat in a little bit, just to try and make a little bit of noise, try and draw some fish in. So obviously that noise of the meat hitting the water should just draw some early fishing, but if I do start to experience a few foul lookers, I'll probably swap to my medium pot with the open lid. And what that'll allow me to do is just sneak that meat in a bit quieter and hopefully keep them on the bottom. It's amazing that you can see them fish just sat on the top. It was exactly the same yesterday on beach, and the late fish really difficult. I think I only had £51, but you can see fish over your float all day, and I think it makes you think that you can catch them, but I do think you are just better off ignoring them fish, because they're not feeding fish, they're just fish that are swimming round. A few little funny signs. Keep loose feeding a few maggots on that. See, right. I'm going to come back and take a little trimmer off that. Sat a bit low, and I'm actually reacting to line bites where I feel like I need to just be a bit more patient. So if I nip a little trimmer off me, I can just bite one off. And obviously that's why I build a couple of number 13 stocks into my rig. This allows me to pop one off and sit my float up a bit more, and hopefully now I can just sit and be a bit more patient. You can see that, just adding that little shot on, just pop my float up. pinging all the while, just pinging on me other line, 10 or 15 maggots twice. Trying to build that up. Might be the case that maggots isn't great today and I just spend most of the day fishing meat, but I still want to give myself the option, because yesterday maggots was the best bait on beach in the end. Caught a few late on the long pole on maggots. What I am going to watch out for a lot today is obviously people catching fishing shallow, because obviously there is some fish swam about shallow. Yesterday they didn't really feed on beach, but there was quite a few fish caught on this lake, I think yesterday, shallow, so I'm going to watch out if a few people start catching a few fish mugging or fishing shallow. But what I don't want to do is waste time flicking about at fish that aren't feeding fish, especially not if I can get some bites on the bottom. Right, so I've had them 4 carp early on that meat line to me right, but then I'm just having them fish swimming around me float and I'm getting a few little funny signs. I can't get any proper bites now, so I've had a quick flick shallow and I did foul up one fish and I missed a bite, but I've not actually caught a fish shallow, so I've had to drop back on the bottom. Probably going to have a look on maggots on the bottom soon, because I know Alan next door's just had a carp on maggots on the bottom, but there's people catching shallow and I can't work out how to catch him. I've just had a flick around for a bit and I've not had a bite, so I just need to try and keep my eye on what's going on and hopefully suss something out quite quick. But lad to me right's probably had 3 decent carp shallow. He's probably got 7 or 8 fish now, and the lad 2 pegs to me right, me left, he's catching shallow as well, but stuck one on the bottom now, so I've dropped back, obviously like I said, I've dropped back on the bottom and I've caught an eyed. I've just caught another one, so hopefully I can settle him back down on the bottom and catch him like that, because I think I'll be able to get a better run of fish catching on the bottom. But I'll just see it. At the minute I do want to try and catch on meat, because I feel like I'll give myself the best chance of catching decent carp and less eyed, catch proper fish if I can catch on meat. But just see, be able to use Alan on the next pegs, you know, someone to have a watch of, see what he's catching on maggots. And if he starts catching really well, I can just drop in on my bottom line on maggots. But they're not bad fish. I got told sort of the average was sort of going to be between £2, but these are probably averaging 3 and a bit, maybe up to nearly £4, some of these fish, so they're quite a decent average stamp what I'm catching on meat. So probably got £18, and we're sort of 45-50 minutes in, so that's not too bad. So going to keep plugging away on this, keep catting a few maggots in on my other line and see how it develops from there. So might be just the case that later on in the day I do start to catch a few fish shallow and start having a proper feed on them maggots what I'm loose feeding. But at the minute I just think it's fish just buzzing about the lake, they're not really wanting to feed, and You're almost just mugging an odd one on that shallow line. So you probably are, if you can get some bites on the bottom, you probably are better off doing that. You probably can see all them little liners on your float. Like, this lake's absolutely solid with fish, and there's fish swimming through your peg all the time, swimming through your line, and it doesn't mean that they're easy to catch. If they don't want to feed, they don't want to go down and eat any bait, it can be a proper frustrating sort of day. But sure, obviously as the day goes on, more and more of these fish will actually want to come on the feed, and hopefully it should get stronger. Right, so we're about an hour and a half into the match, maybe an hour and 40 minutes into the match, and after that good little run of carp on meat at the start, it's been quite strange, to be honest. Just foul up that one there. Struggling to get any bites on any of my lines. You get loads and loads of indications of fish sat off the bottom, and I just can't get a bite shallow. I flicked the little shallow rig around for a little bit for one fish, but I just felt like I was wasting time. So just keep feeding a bit of meat on me right hand line. Hopefully that'll come back a bit later on. I'm just having a go on maggots now, and I have caught a couple of little carp on it and a couple of eyed, but all the time you're just getting fish swimming through your line. It's really frustrating. You can't like sit and wait for a bite. You're constantly lifting your rig out of the water, and I feel like it's just not right. But I just can't work out how to catch them fish shallow. So I'm just going to plod away with this for now. Just potting a few maggots in, and just loose feed an odd maggot as well. Just hoping I can settle them down, and I just think there's that many fish in these lakes. If they don't want to feed, they can just cause you all sorts of problems. Liners foul up fish. See again, little carp just swam straight through my line. You can see it bow wave off. So strange. Like, I don't think I've ever been to a venue like this before. Like, just hooked and eyed now. Now it's nice to be getting an odd bite off these, but I think I do need to be catching carp if I'm going to do any good. So like, what's that? Probably 8-10 ounce. Probably not quite big enough. Like, the weights you're probably going to look for today somewhere between sort of 120 and 150 pounds to do well. I don't think you can do it catching these eyed. So, not long started to throw a few bits of meat short. Hopefully they'll come there later on. Like I say, loose feeding 4 or 5 bits of meat on me right hand line. I mean, like, the guy to me right's actually catching really, really well shallow. Might have had nearly 8 or 10 carp shallow now, and I've only had sort of 9 carp myself in total, so he's doing really well. He caught a few on the bottom early at the start, and I can see he's fishing sort of roughly around a foot deep and fishing like 2 or 3 maggots on the hook, and I've tried that and I just can't catch one. So ever so strange, but hopefully something will change. I'll start getting a few bites soon. So we are about just over 2 hours into the match, and slow down a touch now on this lake. There's a few less bites being had, but I had a good little run on maggots, but we had to cut that little short section down a little bit because it started to rain. And I had a good little run on maggots, caught a few wide and a couple of carp, while I was just started to ping a bit of meat in. Like I say, instead of just potting it, I felt like I had to try and build that up a bit and bring it back, because I do feel like my best chance of catching a good run of carp is on meat. So I'd been pinging a few bits, only 3 or 4 bits all the while I've been fishing on my maggots. And I've just dropped back in sort of 10 minutes ago. I've just caught 2 fish, so they were both decent carp, sort of 3-4 pound a piece. So hopefully now that's settled down a little bit. Still going to keep feeding me maggot line, you never know. I might need to drop back in on that soon. But what I'm hoping now is I can have a good little run on this meat, and then hopefully come short and down the edges late on. Little indication there. One thing what I think has been important, like I made the mistake there, is striking it a little indication. It's just to wait until you get a positive bite. Like get a lot of, like I say, there's a lot of fish in here and there's just swimming around. Get a lot of little signs on your float. When you get a proper bite, it's like unmistakable. So just be a bit more patient, I think. I think that maybe I've been a bit guilty of not being patient enough here, because they are decent fish. Obviously when you can see all these fish swimming around, you feel like you have to catch quicker than you probably need to catch. So being patient, tapping a bit of meat in every now and again, just loose feeding 3 or 4 bits of meat around the float. Seems to be working quite nice, and it's like literally just after dropping back in on this in probably 4 or 5 minutes, I've caught sort of 7 or 8 pound really quick. So just shows. Oh, and see, that's another proper clean bite. You see, like I say, like them sort of bites are unmistakable. Just loose feed a few bits of meat when you hook the fish. Try and bring them fish back in. Like I say, good stamp fish. Not massive fish, but proper weight building fish, and like I think if I can catch some later on short on meat, I could be alright. That's a touch smaller one, like I say, but probably sort of. Quick look at the discordia. Let me discordia out. Sort of 2.5, £3, so they all add up. Probably getting on for £40 now, so it's not too bad. Like I say, after 2 hours, we fished 5.5 hours today, so yeah, just pot in. Not loads of meat, just 8 pieces, something like that. Keep throwing a few in short. Every time I sort of ship out to top 6 where I'm fishing, I just stop, throw some meat in. Trying to build that up for later in the match where hopefully I can get a real good run. I think the nice thing as well about fishing there short is I won't have any problems with these fish whizzing about around my float, because you don't see so many of them cruising in short. They all seem to be out in the lake. So I think there I'll be able to sit there dead patient, and every time it goes it should be a big fish in the mouth. Again, little tiny indication. Don't strike it then. Like you see in that last bite, when you get a proper bite on this meat, it's unmistakable, it's on. Got to try and stop yourself from lifting into them bites. Ooh, that looked like a proper bite then, but struck me. Ooh. See that then, spooked off again. That was just a fish. Just sat just under the water. Ping a couple of grains of meat in. Seems to work really well, that, just pinging a few bits of meat in. Seems to have brought some fish into my peg. I think making that bit of noise, really important. If you know, struggling for some bites, one way to draw a few fish into your peg. A little slow bite. Oh, that's actually on. I thought that was a little liner then. Clearly one's just picked me meat up. Just slowly swam off with it. Throwing a few bits of meat in short. Definitely feel like meat's the bait today. Like that maggot line, did manage a few carp on it, but just seems slow when you get a couple of eyed and you're missing a few more bites, and it's just not right. I think like with this, at least when the float does go under, it's a carp in the mouth. So that's £41 I've got clipped now. So I'm doing alright. I think if I can have a better second half of the match, I should be able to push myself over £100. And obviously, if it turns up really strong late on, I might be able to push myself up to sort of that 120, which I think should be enough to frame today. So fingers crossed I can keep getting a few bites. Right, so it's 2 o'clock. I've got 22 carp now. So with the few hide I've got, I'm probably not a million miles away from £70, which is a decent weight. I think I'm doing okay. Just caught on that right hand meat line, just being patient, just putting a bit of meat in, and cutting a few grains of meat in. It's been quite good. It's enjoyable fishing, getting some bites, just catching these smallish carp. What I'm going to think about doing now is trying to start feeding me edge and start feeding me short line a bit more regular. So what I'm going to do, because the fishing's not hectic, even though I've got quite a deep margin, which is around 2.5 foot, I'm going to feed some ground bait down the edge, which is just Blake's pole mix and a few micro pellets, fishery micro pellets mixed in. I'm just going to feed 100ml pot, just a 100ml guru pot of that mix down that edge. I'm just going to feed that probably every 15 minutes, just to sort of build it up. Just put it right in my marker, and hopefully some fish will come there late. It might be literally last 40 minutes, last half an hour before I get a bite there, but if I do get a good run there, they're likely to be a touch better fish. So again, all I'm doing, feeding a 10 piece of meat with my little pot. Just seems really important, like second I started to lose feed an odd bit of meat over this line, it's been 10 times better. Just making that bit of noise just worked really well. So I think that's something that's important. And another thing what seems to have happened is I caught quite well, and then I fouled up 2 or 3 fish, and I've just had to move sort of a foot or so to the right, because the fish have just bored out a little hole, only sort of, you know, like an inch or so, but it's just enough where I feel like my meat's probably sitting in that hole and the fish are struggling to like pick it out. So I want to try and be fishing on a nice flattish area, so just replumbed up about a foot to the right. It's nice and flat there, and I've just caught one quite quick and had a nice clean bite from it. So that's one thing you've got to be aware of on these sort of lakes where there's a lot of carp. They feed quite aggressively, and they can actually eat the bottom away a little bit, especially when you're, you know, fishing lakes which are quite silty. And then should be able to take my jacket off in a bit. That rain stopped. We've had showers on and off all day today. Made the filming a bit tricky, but hopefully now it's cleared up and we'll have a nice dry last 2 hours. Right, so there's about an hour and 10 minutes left, and the whole lake seems to have shut right down now. You know, I can't really get any bites. I'm fishing still on my meat line long. I've had a look short, I've not had a sign on that, And like I say, nothing's coming in down the edge, but looking around the lake, I can't really see anyone catching either, so it seems to have really gone slow now. I think I've got about 26 carp, which is probably about 80-ish pound. So I think anything over a ton today will probably do well. So if I can just eke out a few more fish, I might do alright, but I'm not really sure where I'm going to catch them, to be honest. It's just weird, it seems like literally everything now is just swimming around the lake. You can see an odd one topping about. Nothing actually wants to go down and eat any bait. Really strange, you'd think, obviously there's so many fish in this lake. You'd think that late on, fish would have a right good chew and everyone would be catching one a chuck, but definitely not the case today. I think it started off well. You've seen, like, when we started, everyone was getting a few bites. And it's just slowly starting to get worse and worse and worse. I think the only thing I can really do now at this stage is just be patient and hope that maybe right at the end some fish will come down the edge maybe. I've still been feeding it. Every 15 minutes I've just been putting a pot of, pole mix and micros 50-50, 100ml pot, just to try and prime it up. But as of yet, I've not seen anything come in there. It's quite frustrating really, because that middle part of the match was quite good, to be fair. I was catching steady away on this long line. I felt like hopefully later on we'll get a good run, and it's actually the opposite, but same for everyone, to be fair, so you just got to get your head down and just try and catch what you can. So on this meat line long today, what's been very important, I think, is to try and make a little bit of noise with your bait. Like, early on I started just potting a bit of bait in. I caught a few straight away, but then as it sort of started to slow down, the only way that I found to bring an odd fish back into your peg is just by loose feeding a couple of cubes of meat, only like 3 or 4 cubes of meat, just to make a little bit of noise, create a bit of falling bait. Seems to draw an odd fish back into your peg. But I think you still need that little pot on your pole just to tighten that bit of meat up and know that you're fishing right over where there is some meat. And like through the day I've just been throwing some meat short. I thought like that had really come good. Keep chucking 3 or 4 bits of meat in. And I've had a go on it and I've not had a bite, so still going to keep chucking an odd bit there. Could still come good right at the end, but at the minute it's not looking likely, I don't think. Right, so not long left now really, I think about 40 minutes. It's just gone really difficult, to be honest, on the old lake, and I just thought, just have a quick look in my edge just to see if I can get a bite before I commit to adding another section on that long line and starting a new fresh peg. I thought I'll just have a quick look because I haven't had a look in yet. I've just gone in, first feed, caught an F1, so hopefully I'll get a few bites down there now. I'm going to still keep throwing a bit of meat in and catching a bit of meat in long, which is ever so strange how difficult the lake's gone now. Now a few fish are feeding. Just down this edge I'm just feeding now just with a large guru cad pot full of ground bait and micros, fishing 4 maggots on the hook. Putting it in and just dropping my rig straight on top. You know, I've not seen a great deal caught down the edge by people, but thing is, if you can get one little run down there, a few better fish late on, it'd be a big bonus. Like, you can just turn up at any second down the edge, start coming in, looking to have a bit of a feed. So, got to keep feeding it. Don't ever write it off until you're all out, sort of thing. Right, so not long to go now. I think sort of 10 or 12 minutes. Been a very slow last hour on here today. I think obviously it being tightly pegged in. I think with Fishermania Qualified being on here yesterday, I think fish have just shut up shop a bit. I've just managed to just put in a very odd fish in the net, to be honest. Like, I've had probably about 3 carp and an F1 this last hour, and this will be my 4th carp. So I think I've got sort of about 29 fish. I think this might be 30 fish now. You know, it's a nice day's fishing. I've had an enjoyable day. Hopefully I can just keep catch another 2 or 3 now. It might push me up to close to £100, which, you know, sort of be happy with that today. I think the venue hasn't fished great. I don't know about Beach and Sycamore lakes. Obviously this lake fished quite well yesterday, and it's not been great today, so I think maybe could do alright with in and around £100. So another nice sort of 2.5, £3 mirror. Both seem to be around that similar sort of stamp today. I don't think I've had a fish bigger than sort of £3.5, £4. But sort of every carp's probably £2.5 plus, so they're a nice stamp, to be fair. Real nice fishing when there's a few in your peg on that meat. Just a shame. Sort of died for us later on, really. Hopefully this last 10 minutes catch a couple more. Right, so a couple of minutes left now. This probably will be the last fish of the day. Like I say, it's been a tough last hour, but we have managed to keep sneaking an odd fish out. Shame that they didn't come short and in the edge. I was hoping we'd manage to get a good run, but it's just not happened. But just been patient on that long line and just kept trying to nick an odd fish. So just get this one in, and then probably the next time I'll speak to you, it'll be when we're weighing in. Right, so we're just going to have a quick conclusion from the day. I've ended up weighing £99, which has won this lake, so really happy with that. And I also think I've come third overall in the match, so reasonable result. I'm really happy with that, to be fair. You know, it's not a lake I've ever fished before, so really happy with third in the match. In terms of looking at how I've fished and what I think I could have done better, fishing long today on meat was definitely the way to go. Just being nice and patient and just catching a few bits of meat in every now and again and potting a bit in, and that has been the best way to catch the fish. They haven't wanted to come short in the edge. Not many people have caught anything short in the edge. Few people who've had a spare peg have caught, you know, a couple of fish in the edge, but it hasn't been the way. Just fishing long has definitely been the best way to get some bites. One thing I wish I would have done though is fish both of my long lines with meat. If I'd have come back, I'd have fished 2 long lines with meat and just bounced off the 2, because the line I fed maggots on today, I've just caught some little tiny hide and it wasn't quite right. So I think coming back next time, if I was on this lake, I wouldn't personally fish maggots. I think there's too many small hide. I'd have fished meat on all my lines. Also, looking back, I think I wish I'd have had a line later on in the match. I think I wish I'd have put another section on, and I think I would have caught a few more fish and maybe pushed myself over the ton. But I don't think I could have caught enough to win the match or anything. I think Adam Richards has won the match on Sycamore with £130, so massive well done to Adam. And overall, it's been a nice day. Quite a tough day for the Oak standards, but I've really enjoyed it. Right, so I'm quickly just going to run through the rigs that I've used today. I've had 4 rigs set up, but the main one has been the rig for fishing out long on meat and also on maggots. It's been nice today. It's been actually dead flat, so I've been able to fish both lines long with the same rig. So the rig is going to start at the elastic. So the elastic choice is a 13 hollow from Preston. The fish for mainly carp today, so obviously you need a decent elastic to land the fish, and they do pull back quite a bit in here, so 13 hollow. Moving down the main line, I've just stepped up the main line a touch than what I've been fishing for F1s to 017. Just again, because I'm fishing for some carp and they do pull back, I just need a nice durable main line. Going down to the back shot, which I always use, 2 number 8 back shot. That's just, you know, perfect for holding my rig nice and in position. It's around 3 or 4 inches above the float, and that just helps me pin my bait right in position. Moving down to the float, I've got an RW Maggie 4x14, nice carbon stem and a reasonable thickness hollow tip, just perfect for the long pole. Can see it out there perfect. And I used actually a bit of a lighter float yesterday. I used a 4x12 float on here because it's only around 4 foot in depth, but I found that you get a lot of indications you need to reset your rig quite quick. So by using a bit of a heavier float, it just allows me to do that. Going down to the shotting pattern, I've got my typical deep water shotting pattern. I've got a bulk of number 9 shot and 2 number 10 droppers. Down to a 4-inch hook length of 013 power line and a size 16 Super LWG hook. So the next rig I'm going to talk about is my little shallow rig that I had set up. I just set this up because obviously you can see a few fish cruising about, and if there was some fish that wanted to feed shallow, I thought I'll have it set up and I can always flick it in. I've only actually had 1 bite on this today. It was definitely better to just sit long on the bottom and be patient than to slap your shallow rig about. It was just a bit too inconsistent. So the elastic, I've just stepped it down a little bit. When I'm fishing shallow, I just need an elastic that's nice and soft so they don't splash on the top. So I've got an 11 hollow elastic. And then again, 017 main line, one number 8 back shot, just so, because I've got quite a long length of line between my float and pole, I just need that to keep my line nice and tight between, like I say, the float and the pole. Helps me hit bites. I've got a little number 2 RW dibber float. Nice light float. I find the fish spook off noise on here. If the second you flick a heavy float in, they just turn away from it, so you need a nice light float. That's just shot with 2 number 11s underneath the float to allow a nice slow fall of the hook bait. And I've got an 013 up length and a size 16 Super LWG hook. And then the final rig, again a rig I've only actually caught one fish on today, but that was the edge rig. It's quite deep down the edge on this peg, probably around 3 foot. So again, 13 hollow elastic, just so if I'm hooking some carp, I can land them nice and quick. 017 mainline, exactly the same. 2 number 8 back shot, 3 or 4 inches above the float, just to help pin it in tight to the bank. I've got a 4x14 carp dink. And the reason I've used this float, because it's quite deep, I needed quite a longish float, but again it's got quite a nice thick bristle which is perfect for fishing down the edge. Running down to the shotting pattern, when I fish down the edge I generally just stick to a bulk, pin it down there nice on top of the bait. You don't want to have any problems with your bait, you know, wafting about when fish are coming in and feeding. So just have a nice tight bolt there, number 9 shot, just helps pin it on the bottom. And I've just got a 4-inch hook length of 013 power line again and a size 16 Super LWG hook. Right, so I'm just going to quickly talk through the bait that I've used today. I've kept it nice and simple. I come on yesterday and I worked out that pellets wasn't really working at all, to be honest, and that meat and maggots were definitely the best 2 baits. So I've just bought some meat and some maggots and also a bit of ground bait. So I'm just going to run you through them quickly. So firstly, I'll just talk about the ground bait. It's my typical mix that I use in the summertime, Blake's commercial pole mix. Absolutely brilliant, just mixed nice and wet, and I've put a few fishery micro pellets in just to give some bigger particles so that, you know, if you just feed it on its own, I find that the fish come in your peg, waft it about and swim straight out, whereas if you can feed a few micros with it, it helps to hold a few fish. I think that's a good tip, that is. I always mix my ground bait up like that. The next bait I'm going to talk about is the maggots. Bought sort of 3 or 4 pints of maggots with me. Not really used many today. I've been cattying that line to my left for most of the match, but it hasn't been great, to be honest. I've caught a handful of hide and a couple of carp on it. They're just mainly white maggots with a few reds. I prefer whites in the summer when there's a bit of colour in the water, but I do bring a few reds as well just for a change of hook bait. And then finally, and the bait that's done most of the damage today, has been meat. That's just Tesco's own meat, but any sort of pork luncheon meat's absolutely fine. I've just cut that through a 6mm cutter, and I think that's a perfect size for these smaller stamp carp. I don't tend to use 8mm a lot. I might use a 7mm when there's a few better carp, but these sort of stamp, which is sort of 2 to 3 pound, 6mm is absolutely perfect. And that's been my bait today, nice and simple. So I hope everyone's enjoyed this live match. If you have, then don't forget to like and also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And don't forget, any of the tackle you've seen that I've used in this video is available on www.matchwinninedges.com.